I think it's pretty clear that the first round is introductions. Be reminded of our passion because we kind of know who we are and where we're at. Or do we? Does anybody not know everybody here or want to know more information about somebody here?
I think I know everybody.
I think I want to learn a little more about Jesse.
All right, Jesse, a little more about what you do and who you are and what your passion is.
Well, I'm somebody who's always protested, like the war, all those nice things. And of course, life gets in the way and you're not that active. But I have done several Bernie parties, when he was running in 2016. And we didn't do any the last time as kind of a strange primary. But I worked in entertainment my whole life, making movies, TV shows, and every position just about you can make. But I never did wardrobe really. But anyways, produced a couple of movies, associate producer on the ABC primetime show, stuff like that. And now I'm basically retired from all that and just managing the Blues Brothers. And we tour around the country and occasionally to some islands. And I'm a very happy guy and I'm very happy to be with all of you. I'd like to help change the world.
Any
Go ahead.
specific political ideology or goals or strategies or ideas?
Well, my only thing that I've been a lifelong Democrat, being born in Chicago, you basically are, but I'm very upset with, our own party. So I voted Green in the last two major elections because I live in California. It didn't affect Hillary's vote or, things like that, but I obviously hate the right-wing people. And I understand why they did it. I don't necessarily hate them. I certainly don't like the ones we have in Congress. And, everybody has their beliefs. I believe in helping make a better world that works for everybody.
Okay, Nissan, more questions or is that?
No, that was it. Just one. If you had any new ideas or thoughts or any outlandish things or whatever.
I liked everything that you said last week, and I enjoy everybody's input and how hard everybody's trying to form something together.
All right, any more questions or introductions or? Because we'll move to round two. And that's where we get to talk about our passion and our action, how we can collaborate and support we would like to have. So anyone can start.
Okay, I'll start then. So before, like I said in previous meetings like that we are live in a world where information is power. And for many years, the left has been specifically targeted as part of the leadership through certain policies to target their leadership and to break up, the groups and organizers. And we do not have any system of fine information that is not already tainted by some type of propaganda or some filter by malicious forces. So I ask for you today, and I'm looking for help of providing any information on the ground and creating a ground-based network of informants in order to keep track of all the attacks, all the misgivings, all the dirt and everything of the like, to collect them in one central location and to be reviewed and analyzed by a group of like-minded individuals, and to use that information to strategize and to plan counterintelligence initiatives. I believe this is a very big cause, and we need to start rebuilding the left leadership, and you can only do that by rebuilding trust and faith inside our groups, so we could work, so you could finally overcome this fragmentation and come together, work as a group that we could always rely on, and we could fight with just using the truth and with the reality, and not having to fight unseen, unknowable enemy. Thank you.
Thank you, Nissan.
Can somebody summarize that?
I can tell you that I've heard it a couple times, and what he's saying is we don't have anything on the left that compares to what they're doing on the right with organizing, and so he's saying that he wants to form a group that can counter that by knowing through knowledge of what they're doing, you can counter it. So is that
Okay,
close enough, Nissan?
Close enough.
cool. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I still don't quite understand. Can you maybe give us an example of what you would be countering and how you would counter it?
Yeah, where we will be countering troll farms, infiltrators, union busters, anti-union actions, Pacific policy, Pacific Trojan horse policies that are meant to specifically target left leadership with the guise of something positive.
How would you counter those? Like, how do you counter a troll farm?
Well, there's two ways of countering a troll farm. One
What is that word?
troll farm.
Troll farm.
Troll,
Okay.
troll, Troll.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
Basically, they're a designated group of individuals that use online media presence to disseminate false information and
Okay.
to attack some individuals with information.
Okay.
Which I guess is really my larger question is, so if it's false information that's being disseminated, how do you counter that?
Yes, like I said, one is an establishment of a clear communication system. Another way of doing this is by, again, filtering out all misleading information, and by way of verifying all sources. And also, to counter troll farms specifically, we could use things like DDoS attacks or isolated entropic intelligence systems, or we can do we can also do what CIA does, which uses well, that I don't know if I could explain that in a simple term. Yeah, that probably be too difficult for you to digest in those words. The simplest terms I can get is basically making sure we have a way to respond immediately to those claims, like instant fact checking, and also making sure we could check each other's information is correct.
Cool. Are there any more questions? I like it, Nissan. I hope you get some support. I know I talked to Jesse a lot about how the people in the past have abused power to where we are today. So is anyone else got more of a desire to share than I do about what they're doing?
You can go back to 1900 when J.P. Morgan wanted us to invade the Philippines and Cuba, which we nicely did. And all wars are for profit. We're looking at another war today. They're usually created by false flag attacks in one way or another. They're all proxy wars. And it's us against them, and we play boogeyman to them, and they play boogeyman to us while we spend all of our money on the militaries. I don't know how you break that system, but one idea that Bernie has is, let's cut the budget for the military.
Blueprint for a Better America, tell you how to do it.
Mhm.
Nissan.
I would like to propose a completely separate strategy, alternative strategy to instead of trying to cut the military budget, because that honestly ain't going to happen. Because
Okay,
the military does profit.
can we stay on the agenda, which is
Okay.
we're talking about what our action and passion is, and
Sure.
I'm full of it tonight. So does anybody else want to go? All right.
Ah,
Hi, Sheila. As you know, I have a short-term plan, a medium-term plan, and a long-term plan. And the short-term plan is to work on the reality as I find it, to shape it into the reality that I want. My second level is citizens assembly, where we create a alternative to the representative government that can be bought and controlled. And then my third goal is something like copiosis, which is a system where money's not the object. We work for passion and fulfillment. So today I worked on the American Union Blueprint for a Better America. And I listened to Brian do an interview, and I felt real positive about where they're going. And then I just got through with the seminar with these people that are doing participatory budgeting, which is citizens assembly. They find money that's being handed out, and then they come together as a community and they open to the entire community what their ideas are. Then that goes to a citizens assembly, and they narrow it down to a manageable amount of ideas. And then those ideas are looked at by experts to see what's feasible and what is in the budget. And I also talked to Christopher, who's in copiosis, and he reminded me of exponential growth that we're in. And really, they're changing all the time. And, you know, in a way, everything I'm doing is just entertaining me because life is moving faster than me. That's my share for tonight. So hearing nobody say anything.
I'll go, TC.
Okay, Eddie.
So one of the projects that I'm working on is a UBI enabled digital currency or cryptocurrency, and so we're building this with a small community, and in a nutshell, what you do is you exchange help with other people. But what the currency does is it makes that a little bit easier, because say TC is really great at helping me with something. And then, you know, in normal, if we didn't have this currency, then I would probably have to figure out how I can also help TC in some way to keep the relationship equal. But when you have the currency, maybe, you know, TC doesn't have anything that I can help him with. I pay him in Maydao, but maybe like Shiwa has something that she's really good that she can help TC with. So I pay TC in Maydao. TC pays Chiwa and Maydao for her to help TC, and then maybe you know, Chiwa has something that I can help her with. So it sort of multilateralizes this you know, exchange of help, and it's called mutual aid DAO. So we you know, we definitely need more people to come participate in our tiny UBI enabled economy. So you know, if you would be interested in helping with that, you can contact me through TC, or I guess I'll put my email in the chat.
I said, cool, Eddie. It looks like you're back home.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes Susan. All right, this is going to change everything. Susan is that your friend, Chiwa?
yep, that's my friend Susan. Hi, Susan. There she
Welcome,
is.
Susan. So,
Hi.
Susan, you missed the introduction round.
All right, I thought this was started at 5:30. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, you thought you were early.
All right. Well, so why don't you quickly tell us your name and where you are on the planet, your passion and action is.
My name is Susan Lewitt, and I'm not that far away from where Chihuahua is. I'm in San Diego. My passion and action is preserving our natural world and preserving biodiversity, plants and animals, all the peoples of the world, human and non-human alike.
All right. In the introduction, I don't know if we want to go all the way back and just maybe quickly we'll each say our name, where we're at, and our passion, just 1, 2, 3. And I'll go DC. I'm in Oceanside, and my passion is supporting people that are making a difference.
I'm Nissan. I'm from New York, representing the NYPA, New York People's Assembly, and the United People's Assembly. And my passion is networking and establishing a way to fight and solve all the problems of our country, and hopefully end the insanity that we're in.
Thank you. Jesse?
My passion is to find a way to get our politicians that write the laws to give us some justice. You can have the laws, but if nobody enforces them properly, that's not a good thing. All the people in prison, all those different types of things. Our police departments are militaristic.
Okay, thank you,
And
Jesse.
that's pretty much where I'm at.
That's where you're at. Eddie?
I'm Eddie. I'm in Shanghai, and one of my passions is eliminating poverty with UBI, and also the economics of how that can work.
Brian?
My name's Brian. I'm in North Carolina, and my passion is trying to solve all of those problems that everyone else just mentioned. So ending poverty, ending mass incarceration, ending the endless wars, and fixing our political structure all in one shot.
Chihuahua, you know each other, so I'm not gonna, unless you want to say
Well,
something. Yeah, why don't
well,
you?
everybody else got to. I think I should too, right?
I think you should have a turn, yes.
I'm Chihuahua, and I have a lot of passions. Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about everything that everybody has been talking about here. But the one passion that I guess I'm engaged in is finding ways to. I write kids' books. I mean, that's what feeds my heart. And I'm writing kids' books about how to help the planet and the animals and the plants and stuff like that. So my passion is finding ways to get kids to inspire their parents to wake up to climate change and take action, even though there may not still be time.
All right, thank you, Chihuahua. So we're kind of blending into round 2, which is to, if you have a passion and an activity that you want to share, and how we can support each other and help you. So if you want to say anything, Susan, it's your turn.
I'm a member of the Gardening for All Pod, which is part of the Climate Reality Leadership Project, the San Diego chapter. And we have several presentations that we've put together. One's on why you should compost. Another one is on how to compost. And the third one is on the importance of native plants and how that comes into play with the idea of 30 by 30. If there are people and groups that we can give those presentations to, that would be great, so we can spread the word more. Other people who will listen to those presentations, that's great. And does everybody here know what 30 by 30 is? I don't recall if we've touched on that.
Refresh me.
30 by 30 is the idea of having 30% of our planet, that's land and water, in a protected state by the year 2030. So it'd be all natives, all natural. And they've shown, like, for example, the coastal waters, when they're protected, that you get an overflow into the areas that are fished, and the people who fish, the fishermen, the commercial fishermen, have more fish to catch because it overflows from the natural areas, the protected areas.
So two
Nissan,
questions with that. Can I have a question now?
go.
Okay.
Okay, so one, how much of the planet is already under protection? And two, how would we actually enforce a protection of planet on that scale?
It would be difficult. It would have to be on a case-by-case basis. And I know that the percentage, I've heard the numbers. I don't remember the exact percentage. I want to say it's around like 18% for land, but I'm not really sure. And I think for the waterways, I think it's lower. I do not remember the exact numbers, so, but we have a ways to go before we can get to 30%. And 30% is just an intermediate step, because to actually protect and preserve biodiversity and have animals not endangered, have them not go extinct, and plants and animals, we'd actually have to preserve 50% of our planet. I think it can be done. I mean, just think of all the rooftops and places where people have cement where they don't really need to have cement. There are lots of spaces out there that can be converted to natural areas.
Right, did that answer your question, Nissan?
Okay.
Adon is shown up, and Adon, we're at round 2, but in round 1, where we introduce ourselves, you familiar with everybody in the group? I don't think we want to go through it again. You just give us a quick introduction from you, Adon. Okay, well, that didn't seem to happen. It's on our agenda. I was going to have us talk about having this group use issues from the blueprint on a better America for a better America, issues to talk about. But then I thought maybe better before that we introduced the blueprint on the screen share. Either I or Brian can talk about it. And the idea, I'm going to go to the table. This is the blueprint. It's long and it has a lot of detail. And the important thing for tonight, here it is, the blueprint for a better America. So it starts out with the table of contents. Is it okay for me to go, Brian? Yes.
Yeah, go for
Okay.
it. All right. Well, I guess, does everybody know what this is? What this is? This is a legislative package.
Yeah.
The federal legislation.
I've read the whole thing.
Good, Nissan. You are the man. For me, the first thing was to realize, well, as you've heard Brian say you will hear him say, the focus on is the 3 ills that Martin Luther King pointed out, which is poverty, racism, and militarism. And so we look at it as today it's poverty, mass incarceration, and militarism. This legislative package is broken into 5 titles. And each title has to do with the duties that are written down in the preamble to the Constitution. So the first one is to establish justice. And look at all these sections. I've seen them all. Title II is to ensure domestic tranquility. That one is kind of short because it's really a truce on the laws about abortion and guns for 10 years. Or it's covered clearly. And we come to Title III, which is provide for the common defense. And of course, there, I agree with the feeling that we have exceeded what the framers intended for common defense. And we are now time to take a look at how we have spread ourselves all over the world, basically unending war. And this Title III addresses the military footprint and just all things military, wants to reduce the military 10% a year for 4 years, cut back on our bases around the world. And one of the things that I like to point out is that when we reduce the military is one of the bigger polluters. And so we would be cutting way down on the greenhouse emissions and making it a better world, improving America's moral standard. Okay, so here's Title IV is to promote the general welfare, and that's about UBI, or it's called the American Union Jobs Program, where everybody is considered to be of value to the country and therefore should be compensated $300 a week for adults and or $1,300 a month, or 1/3 of that for children, which comes to $433 a week. And there's paid family leave. How we get the money from the Treasury Department. I think I need Brian to help out, but we're at Title V, secured the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. And that's where we get into the saving the environment and those kind of issues. I don't remember this one, Title VI, miscellaneous provisions, but then it starts into Section 2, which is going right into the bill. That's what it is. Is there any questions or any comments?
This is a lot of work that you've done. You did this, Brian?
I mean, I'm the chef who assembled it, but yeah, lots
Okay,
of
so
people contribute.
It's a lot of work that's been done. I wonder where do things like energy, where does that come in, and where does, I don't want to say climate change because that's many, many issues. But it seems to me there are a lot more issues too. This really brings home to me, my gosh, how many issues we are faced with.
You're correct. There are a lot more issues that need to be addressed, but in one way, it's a political campaign. And as somebody who served in elected office, when you're running for office, you pick three planks, three points, three issues. And so these three are really big issues. When it comes to the climate, and so these are supposed to be able to appeal to all Americans and be a bipartisan coalition, right? And unfortunately, climate change can be stupidly polarized, and it's very frustrating. That was the reason for not addressing it head on as much, and so addressing it indirectly. So included in the legislation at the end there is a carbon tax and a plastic tax, and as TC pointed out, reducing the size of the military. The military is the largest producer of greenhouse gas on the planet, largest single producer. So it addresses those things indirectly, but not as directly as a lot of us would like. But it lays the framework for collaborative democracy, where we can come back in 2 more years with another set of stuff.
I guess I'm trying to understand where they would fall in this, where those issues belong, under which of these titles?
The planet is our children's inheritance, and we're supposed to protect things for our posterity. So the climate issues, they're in the fifth title.
I'm sorry, would what?
In title 5, secure the blessings of liberty
Okay.
to ourselves and our posterity, because
Okay.
the planet is our posterity's inheritance.
Okay, thank you.
So I also think that this is a compromise that is doable by most people most of the time. And if we can get this, then we have something to build on, and we're moving in a different direction. And even if we don't get it, if we can just change the conversation, that would be great. That instead of focusing on war, we focus on ending war and things like that. Any more questions?
Go Susan first.
Oh, thank you. My idea was, if we could get the military away from just being a war machine and get it to be, in a way, it would be a kind of war, but not exactly, but have the military participate in restoring our planet, planting trees, removing invasive species. And there are lists that go on like that. If we could get them to participate in that, they'd be lowering their emissions and raising their effectiveness on the health of our planet.
I agree. I wonder if we need to spend more time on this, or if there's any more questions, or because the next agenda is to talk about if we want to use this as a place to get our issues to discuss from.
I just want to say I totally 100% agree with Susan. I was going to mention that earlier.
You were going to mention what?
That instead of trying to cut the military in half, instead declare climate change as a national security risk and an imminent threat, and convert the military into basically a climate change war. And that way we could leverage the full budget of the United States military into dealing with climate change. And that won't be fought that much, because the military industrial complex contractors will still get the money, and they already have access to the most technologically advanced research facilities and technological manufacturing plants. So them coming up with new technologies like carbon capture would be trivial for them.
I agree.
I like that.
Um,
Yeah, instead of cutting their money, just kind of reassign them.
Yeah,
As a practical matter, how does that work? Since we're supporting hundreds and hundreds of foreign military bases, we got troops stationed all over the world. How
that
would
would call for, yeah, the plan would call for a recall of 80% of all troops and a shutdown of I think 7 out of 10 of the 10. 7, we've got 100 military bases around the world, so 7/10 of that would be 70 military bases around the world. Only worrying about military bases and the contentious areas, which is mostly the ones part of Russia, which I don't think we should have there in the first place. But whatever, there. But but instead of having military deal with external threats, we focus them on domestic threats, and instead of defense through offense, or just defense through homeland.
Well, I agree. And I think that in the blueprint, we talk about cutting foreign military bases by having the people that live near them have an election on whether they want us there or not. And then cutting the military 10% is just getting us used to the idea that we can do it different. And then that moves us to the ideas that you're talking about, that I've thought about myself many times, Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had this, the same focus on taking care of the earth and each other as we do on war? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Big presence of people power to, make things happen for the good. I think I got off course. So,
Well, even if you're on, of course, you said good things. It seems to me that, I mean, the focus tends to be on, but what if the bad guys, the bad guys come and get us, right? If we get rid of the military, right? So we need to shift our focus as a nation from fear of what could happen if we weren't out there policing the world to maybe what the good that can happen if we are out there spreading love and taking care of the world.
agreed.
Now, how you do that, how you shift the focus, that's a pretty big.
Well, I was talking today about what we're seeing is what I call a power struggle. And you have two opposing views, people or governments or whatever, and they each have an agenda. And the one that's getting their needs met is happy, and the one that's not getting their needs met is unhappy. So what we're seeing on a global scale is that people that are running the arms manufacturing and stuff like that, they've convinced us that we need to take an adversarial position to the world, and instead of the end of the power struggle is to own my attachment and listen to the other person. So the way out of this power struggle for us as a nation is to own where we're at and listen to the other side for a change.
I would like to mention to Chiwa that the only way to fix this is a consistent and widespread information campaign via an intelligence agency such as the one I've been proposing. We need a way to coordinate and use information as a tool to regain power, and like the way they use this information to against a tool against us.
Well, I think that's a great idea. And I also think that information is not what changes people's minds. What changes people's minds is emotional appeal.
Yeah, well, that's
And so
called
that
controlling
needs
the
to be
narrative.
part of that as well.
Yeah, that's called controlling the narrative. That's part of information warfare.
How does getting better information out there change the dynamic?
Well, not just getting better information, but also crafting information in a way that's digestible and targets the lizard part of the brain to actually act. It's the way you not only, it's not just the matter of getting information, but also delivering information is very important. All these places craft, they have massive think tanks to craft legislation, to craft words, to craft narratives, to target individuals and inform their ideologies. This is where we get echo chambers and other sorts of things that make more extremist entities arise. So we need to use that same thing to counter it, to actually craft information and give people information that is useful and give people a narrative that they can believe in, that they could actually take action upon.
So isn't that what the blueprint for a better America is? It's a piece of legislation.
Not really.
I guess because I'm asking Nissan, like, how does that information then turn into actual change? Because within the blueprint, there's 24 policies that are supported by a majority of Americans, but yet Congress doesn't do anything. So even though we know that they're good policies, we just don't fix them. They don't get fixed. So how would your model address that?
Again, it's by forming coalition with a extreme narrative and actually be able to target and fight the people that are actually the ones that are the problem instead of us fighting each other.
I think it's worth looking at, the history of disagreements and how, political disagreements have ended up being resolved in the past. I think a lot of things I think some things have changed in the world, but many things, basic human nature and the basic nature of society, many things have not changed. And it's interesting to look at how, how things, happened in the past. And, I think that, if you look at history, usually what happens, for things that, hundreds of years ago, it was a big deal whether the earth was round or the earth was flat. And that was a big deal, and they had to resolve that conflict. That might not be a great example, but politically and historically, usually what happens is that you end up at some point, things that everyone agrees on sort of don't matter too much because everyone agrees. But there are certain things that come up in every era where you have sort of basically equal sides, and one side is saying, it should be done this way, and the other side is saying it, should be done another way, such as slavery during the Civil War, such as fascism, liberal democracy, and communism around the time of World War II. And usually what happens is that, in the end, one side sort of wins. And World War II is interesting because a lot of times, for instance, in World War II, you had essentially three parties, and you ended up with two ganging, liberal democracy and communism ganging up on fascism. And then after that conflict was resolved and fascism lost, then the remaining two also, sort of had some conflict. And that was true, like, for example, in China also, you had the nationalists, you had the communists, and then you had Japan trying to take over China. And the nationalists and communists for a period, they put away their differences and said, we have to kick Japan out first. They did that, and then they had their civil war, and the communists won in China. And it's sort of, I think there's hope in the current era that it could be less violent than in previous eras. And but I think a key to that is still that it is what sort of what Nissan is talking about, is that the battlefield to some degree in the modern era is an information battlefield. That if you can win the narrative and you get 70% or 80% of the population on your side, it becomes very difficult for the other side, if they only have 20 or 30%, to really to have any hope of prevailing. So yeah.
Well, as I look at, I mean, I think I heard you say, Nissan, that oh dear, I'm sorry, my thought skipped my mind. Never mind, until it comes back. Ignore the woman behind the screen.
Brian, were you going to say something?
Yeah, and Eddie, those are great examples. But the question I was asking is, like, paid family leave, for example. More than 80% of Americans support paid family leave. We know this is a good policy. Every other country does it. Like, it's just an accepted fact, and yet Congress can't manage to get it done. There's many policies that the people are in agreement on. We know what the truth is, and yet that isn't enough to actually change the law and actually change the policy.
Yeah.
Are you saying we all agree on family leave? I mean, we here probably agree, but are you saying that all Americans pretty much agree it's a good thing?
84% support paid
Yeah,
family leave.
but out of that 84%, I would have at least 30% of those people bickering about something that they don't understand, even though they actually do agree with the policies because of the way things are worded. I've seen that in small meeting groups, let alone large groups.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, how that's happening. And to some degree, I think that is sort of an opportunity that if you can break through that, divisiveness and get to the core of things that most people agree on. And it's not enough for just 80% of people to agree on that one issue. You have to, political parties have a function, and the function is organization of action. So it's not enough for 80% to agree. You have to get 80% to sort of agree on a package such as like the blueprint for a better America, and 80% to say, we're going to vote based on this thing that we all agree on. And that would carry power. But what's happening right now is that you've got like lots of people who agree here, but they're going to vote for these guys. Lots of people who agree here, but they're still going to vote for those guys because there is some other narrative that is more influential in terms of their actions.
In other words, the 80% need someone to give them marching orders, so they all walk in unison instead of all.
I'm going to ask us to
Or a consensus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give Jesse a chance to talk.
go ahead.
Wow, thank you. I'm enjoying what everybody's saying, and I agree with just about everything that is being said. But in the words of Eisenhower when he left the White House, he said, "Watch out, beware of the military-industrial complex." This is from a general that won the war. And then the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld said, "Our biggest enemy is us because we can't find $3 trillion is missing." So what it boils down to is the richest people in the world are profiting off of these wars. The military industrial complex, it should be going out and fighting climate change. It should be doing a lot of things. But instead, how can we stop the greed that is propelling those people? It's traded on Wall Street. It's banking. It's all these different things together. So again, with justice, we need laws and we need to put them in effect. If we can go around seizing assets of Russian oligarchs, how about we start with our own oligarchs? If they can do that, it would certainly seem a lot easier to do it to our own. But those are the people that are exactly controlling our world.
All right, I agree.
Yeah, Jesse. So to touch on that, yeah, a lot of things we got to worry about is that our systems don't have any real accountability measures. Most of the accountability mechanisms were technically theoretical, that was done by the framers and never truly tested to its full length, as they just viewed America as an experiment on its own anyway. In fact, I keep forgetting if it was Adam or Madison that said that basically says, if this experiment doesn't work, whip up the Constitution, try again.
Yeah,
because they were revolutionaries.
And our Constitution is way outdated. I mean, it's it's ridiculous that we're going to oh, we have the right to bear arms. Well, I don't think we should have any guns. No other country has people killing themselves the way we do. And it's all, the NRA. How do you get rid of the NRA? It's the entire Bush family made their money off of wars. Going back to their great grandfather, the guy sold 70% of every rifle, handgun, and bullet to our country for World War I. What was he doing? He ran two companies for the Rockefellers. One of them was Remington Guns, and one was a steel plant that made things for the richest Democrats, the Harrimans. Harrimans went on to be governors. We have so many politicians from the Rockefeller family. He had an unelected vice president, Nelson Rockefeller. This stuff hasn't stopped. It's only gotten bigger and worse.
Right. So I think that you're saying that this system's been designed this way. And so actually we're at time. I don't think we have to stop at an hour. I've been enjoying this. Um,
I forgot what to say, but it said that it was a feature, not a bug.
right,
It's a feature, not a,
bug. He's saying it's designed this way. It's a feature, not a bug. It's not a
Yeah.
bug in the system. It's the feature of the system.
Yeah.
So it was the intention and not a mistake.
Well, I'm going to ask you, Brian, if you have anything that you want to add to this, seeing as how we were discussing the blueprint for a better America.
There's a lot of Americans agree on a lot of these problems and what the solutions are. We just need we need a path. We need a way to get leverage over Congress to force them to act. And so the goal of having a legislative package that, you know, a bipartisan group of people can support as a way to get leverage by unionizing as swing voters and hold Congress's elections, hold their power over their head. Jesse was talking about their greed, the greed that runs through Washington. So what do they want? They all want to get reelected. And
Yep.
so if we can hold that over their head, and that's how we can get leverage over them, because we're never going to be able to outspend them, but we can outvote them if we use the right tactics.
Well, one issue that, again, Bernie brought up is, you know, because of this gigantic greed, you know, it's how can you stop it? And where do you start? And, you know, I was working on a screenplay that was about 100 years of American history or more coming up to our own time. And what I found, as I said, I thought to myself, well, how do we fight against these richest people? There must be some people and their families that don't like what they're doing. And the first, you know, I've told this Thomas before, but the first thing I did is I looked up that, and what did I find? This guy from the Johnson & Johnson family. It's a big drug company. It's involved in all kinds of other things. Is being sued on both sides of the country for cancer and different, their health and different things like that. But they're also making drugs. These are some of the issues that we have to look at, these different entities that are so big. But what I did find out is this kid, as my 21st birthday, this is one of the Jamie Johnson, this is his name, and I made a videotape because it's my birthday, you know. But I didn't realize I was going to have to spend 5 hours with my father and the lawyers, because today I'm officially a millionaire. And then he goes on to show what happened on his birthday. Went down to this bar later on, where all these kids up in Connecticut, where they all basically live in castles.
Okay,
And,
Jesse, we're
okay,
coming to the end.
but Trump's daughter was there, just to make that one short. I mean, these are the people. We're in that club we're not in.
Okay, Don, are you here? I haven't heard from you all night.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, y'all.
there he is.
I'm here just listening in, you know, just learning. Y'all are so much smarter than me, so I'm just taking
Oh,
notes.
right. I doubt that.
Well, I saw the youth today in a seminar, and they're starting to do citizens assembly on this participatory budgeting. So the youth are on it, Don. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too, y'all. Power to the people
Power to the people.
and revolutionary love.
Revolutionary love.
No, only to some of the people. Only to the people that agree with us, right?
No, not right. We need power to everybody.
I know,
to
I'm
all
kidding.
people.
All right. I was going to ask you, Eddie, how any final thoughts?
There is one other thing that I think is relevant. Peter Turchin has a theory of history and a theory of wars that when he looks at historical data and what happened, and one of the things that he found was that there's always been an elite. For thousands of years there's always been an elite in society. And one of the things she found was that, you know, when the world turns a certain way and there's a lot of misery among the population, he found that generally a miserable population actually does not result in revolutions and wars. He found that what happened is that it has to spread to the elite that you know, in certain eras, it becomes difficult for the elite to get ahead, and the elite like sort of grows too large, and then it splinters into two or more factions. Um, and it's always the elite who have time and energy to actually, like, you know, have these conflicts. Our movement, I don't know, maybe our movement does not need elites in it, but maybe it does. And I would say that the elite are not, they are splintering. They have, you know, different directions and different ideas. And some of the elite, I think, would be willing to sign on to the right idea, whatever that is, but you know, an idea that would lead to a better and more sustainable world. So I just wanted to say that.
Oh, thank you, Eddie. Susan, I'm looking at you. Do you have anything to say before we go?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and it's probably not what you had in mind. I never say what other people have in mind for me to say, but I would like to challenge everybody here to do things as much as they can to be eco-friendly. And I'll give you a list of what I've done so far. My air conditioning heating system needed replaced, so I got a heat pump. So I'm partially off gas, and I'm going to be working on getting completely off gas because the emissions and the price for gas is not worth it. And I'm not just talking about monetarily. I use all my paper goods in this household, unless they came from somebody else that gave them to me, are from recycled or bamboo or hemp. I'm starting to grow my native garden. Right now I have mostly weeds, but I have several areas well, this one that's like 3 feet by 4 feet is tiny, but I have 7 species of native plants in this one little area. There are other things like that that we can be doing, you know, driving less.
And why is that important?
What's that?
Why is that important?
Why are native plants important? Because preserving native plants preserves the species, protects endangered species, encourages our native pollinators.
Yeah, so it's like about bees, for example, yeah?
Yeah, bees, birds, butterflies, them all. We need the more species. And did you realize that I'm not sure what percentage of it, there's a large amount of species that have not been discovered yet. We think we know everything in this world, but most of the species are unknown to us, and I just don't want them wiped out before we discover who and what they are.
All right, Susan.
I'm
what else?
hoping people will act as much as they can in this regard, and other matters that they can think of. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Nissan,
Yeah.
closing thoughts.
So when it comes to changing the system and looking at historical information, the elite part, I guess, is somewhat true. But as far as I know, there's only been 2 successful strategies into changing over a system. The long game, which is systematically targeting the system's broader points with new ideas and slowly building up after many years, such as like with ideas like democracy and stuff. Those took many years, many tries on small scale attempts to try to hammer out the details. And then a collective group of individuals kept hammering away on it until they got into every facet of the government. And this was mostly generational because it went with generational ideas. until finally they gained enough power to actually change the whole system and start a new one. The second way power changes is through a power vacuum, in which a small group of individuals seize power at an opportune time when there's a power gap. This happens in many different times in throughout history. Most notable one is the fall of the Roman Empire. We also have collapse of the Soviet Union. Most of the time when these power gaps happen, it goes to authoritarianism, as people are afraid and they look for anybody that could alleviate their suffering and to provide answers. So they look for a strong man. This is part of our tribalistic nature that we have in our authoritarian brain. So one way to counter that would be to actually have a system already ready in place for when a collapse such as happens would be switched over. But again, this takes a lot of collective organizing and collective informational disbursement in order for this to work.
All right. Thank you, Nissan. Those are strong ideas. Chiwa, did you have something you want to add before we go?
Yeah, it seems like we have a lot of different focuses here, and I align with Susan in that the most important thing from my point of view is that we have to take care of this planet, and we have to do what it's going to take to maintain a livable planet, or none of these other things are going to mean a whole lot. And at the same time, I really appreciate that we need to work on the structure that enforces things to be the way they are right now in order for that to happen. So I'm not sure how we come to something that we can focus on here in this group that that moves us forward in some way, but I hope we find it.
Thank you, Chiwa. That's exactly what I was thinking. We've had a lot of different ideas. The agenda was talking about the blueprint, and then instead of going to the next round or finishing that discussion, we went into like a open discussion, and so many ideas were introduced. But I had fun. I hope you all enjoyed it. And
I did. I think this is really, I really enjoy every one of you, and you all have really interesting things to say and important things to say.
I don't know what the agendas, we didn't get to the fourth thing to talk about if we want to use the blueprint for discussion, and
Maybe we ought to decide what we want to talk about.
well, yeah, and I'm saying I'm offering the blueprint and look at any section in there. Is there something you want to talk for you want to go to Title 5? And
Yeah, but I'm willing to focus elsewhere.
no, but do your passion. Okay.
Can I just quickly conclude and say that the blueprint is supposed to address a lot of these issues that are important to everyone, right? Is that lots of people would love to care more about the environment, but they're too worried about how they're going to pay their rent or put food on the table.
Yeah,
And
I understand.
Universal basic income and ending poverty frees up their mental bandwidth to look at these larger problems. But until that first fire gets put out, they can't, it's hard to take a long-term view. And
Yeah, we're really in a catch-22 because it takes a long time to get there, and we don't really have a long time.
Climate change affects their spending power for their groceries and other things. It has a direct effect on them.
Yeah.
And us.
It's going to help with climate change. It's a systematic problem. Systemic
I
problem.
didn't understand that.
Can
you say that again, Nissan?
I said climate change is a systemic function. It's not something that we could fix on an individual level. I mean, even if we all and everyone on the planet lowered their economic footprint to carbon zero, there's still the structure of the way we actually function and do things will still lead to massive climate change because of the way we have to pollute the planet in order to make profit.
Well, that's what we're changing, Nissan. And people are coming to a place where they realize what we're doing is not serving us or the planet. And they're looking for different ways to do things. And so in the here and now, I think trying to affect our legislators is a noble task. I think beyond that system, but that's just me.
I'll add one thing. There's another plan that is the government pays for the elections, not independent money. And that way, that's what they have to, instead of 1 million advertisements, hate campaigns, different things like that. That's another Bernie plan, would be to go to that path. And then we might have more honesty. And people that want to be public servants should be public servants. They shouldn't be there for the money and the power. They should be there because they have good ideas, like each and every one of you. And I'll shut up now.
Thanks,
Well,
Jesse.
I think a
Well-
lot of what it takes to get there is to disallow lobbying.
Agreed.
Well, first of all, the public funding for elections don't go far enough because it doesn't address the fact that committee seats are bidded for in Congress outright. We have to also incorporate and remove the price tag on committee seats, so that way, it has no effect inside Congress.
banning lobbying. And I know it makes a great soundbite, but when you're in the legislature, you can't be an expert on all parts of all policy.
I
You need
understand.
people with expertise around you, and so lobbyists have a function. Obviously,
right.
it can be abused too, but
They do
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
function.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it's true that we do need people to inform legislatures about all the different aspects of what they're voting on. But somehow, what I said was erroneous. What needs to happen is that somehow the money involved in lobbying needs to be removed.
I would
Unfortunately, it
propose,
can only be done through constitutional convention.
I would propose a collaborative action platform where where people who are working on different stuff can be able to share it with the group and share sort of what is the intended results. How would that work? Like, how do you get there? How do you get that intended result? And sort of, what are we doing, this week that we could use help with, that people could jump in and lend a hand to?
Well, I think that the round where we talked about our actions and passions grew in it. Well, because people came at different times, we continued on those first 2 rounds. And out of those 2 rounds, there was a lot of passion. And so when we came to looking at the blueprint, I don't know, got everybody's attention or not. What are you saying?
We do this till we free us.
Yeah, I saw a question about what's the middle book, and I think you're talking about this one.
No, there's one that's turned the wrong way. The one that you can't read on what the spine is.
Oh wow, yeah, this is the real deal right here. So I guess to close too, to build off what some people are saying, I think the biggest problem is that folks don't understand the problem. So like Susan was saying about Nissan clap.
Oh my God. Oh my God, my brother. Preach, my brother.
I mean, there's so many ways to look at it, but just like climate change, for example, like I completely agree with Nissan talking about like the structural systemic issue. That's so true. And just thinking about something that like blew my mind when I found this out, I wanted to share with you all about climate change. I want to say that I'm not a vegan. I'm not plant-based. All right. I love seafood and all that. I love dairy. But in fact, the cattle industry with cows and pigs, that's actually the largest contributor to climate change, like by far, in what we eat, right? Like that's more than us turning off the water and us switching our heat and us, you know, it's like that's a hard pill for folks to swallow. And if you want more information on that, there's a great documentary called Cowspiracies and it's on Netflix, and it talks all about that. And like that's hard. No one else talk about that. But then like the other thing I wanted to say is like we can't solve climate. We can't value the life of the planet until we can value the life of people on this planet, right? Like that's, it's still a controversial statement to say Black Lives Matter. That's so controversial in places. So how are we gonna say this planet life matters if we can't value the life of people? So this book actually is called Undoing Racism. And the reason why this book is so interesting is because it actually explains that racism race was created to hold classism in place, right? You had poor white folks and poor Black folks and poor Asian folks, but they weren't Black or white at the time, right? They had ethnicities, right? So maybe poor Africans, poor Europeans, right? And they were coming together and organizing. So what they had to do was create race to divide and conquer. So we're not going to be able to solve classism. We're not going to be able to solve any isms until we can understand racism and truly understand why it was created and how it still perpetuates today. So those are just a little bit of my 2 cents. And I'm here if anybody wants to have some conversations around it.
I'm a vegetarian for about
Beautiful.
40 years. So
I'm sorry, Jesse, I talked over you. What'd you say?
I said, I've been a vegetarian for over 40 years of my life. I was as a hippie. I left for a couple of years, came back, and my daughter, who's 18, is vegetarian. The rest of my family is not so much. But anyways, I'm so into tune with that, and also about racism is now today we see satellites of the KKK being rebranded as the Oath Takers and the Proud Boys, and it's all rather sickening.
But again, I want to lift up what Nissan said, that it's not about an individual thing. Like, I don't even want to blame Proud Boy or individual racist people. It's a system that conditions people and programs people to be that way, right? Like, I don't want to blame Black people for being violent or not valuing education. I want to blame white people for, you know what I mean? It's like, we have to look at the system that's causing it, that's perpetuating it. We can change everybody, and then if we don't change the system, it's going to produce more racist people. It's a book called Racism Without Race, and it really talks about that. Like, even if there was like no white people on the planet, we would still have racism, right? There would still be anti-Black biases and practices.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in the cast.
Well, it's a human thing, you know. I mean, race is just an easy thing to see. And so it's easy to put, you know, to want to put one color down below where you are because you can see the colors. But if it weren't for the colors, we find other ways to have our one-upmanship. You know,
right? Like, that's so true. It's like there's only one race, and that's the human race. Right? So there's no,
I was about to say
race
that.
is not biologically real, right? Race is not biologically real, but it is socially, institutionally, and economically real, politically real.
You're brilliant, Adon.
No, I'm just a trainer for the Racial Equity Institute.
You're what I call a qualified witness.
I love y'all.
I love you too. I love all of you.
Revolutionary love.
I think it's kind of interesting that in China, where everyone is Chinese, you actually get like a little bit of like provincism and like provincial stereotypes. So like people from like this province, they say like, oh, people from that province are a certain way, and these two provinces, they don't like each other. It's not super, it's not as like heated, but you do see that. you get this provincial bias.
But like friendly competition.
I actually seen this. I actually seen a video on YouTube. This guy called Utah. He's basically American, but he lives in Japan. And he talks about Japanese culture, and he actually mentions this. Is like like all the like cuss words like that is like to target your Japanese-ness. Like you're not Japanese enough or something. Because I mean, the one thing could be is ganja, kaijo. Well, it means foreigner, basically. So it's like that's basically how they insult each other, like questioning their Japanese. But it's amazing.
Okay, I don't know where we are now. Personally, I'm getting tired. I've had a long day. I was very excited, did a lot of stuff today. I got all my 3 goals attended to and felt good about all 3 of them. And so I'm glad you were all here tonight. And if anybody has anything left to say, now's the time.
Hope to see you all next week. Same time, same channel.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Nissan.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great week, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Revolutionary love.
Still recording, TC?
Oh, wait. Yeah. Oh, wow. How do I do this? Where is the
If you
record?
close the meeting, it'll probably shut off, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'll just stop.
Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye. everybody.
Thanks, everybody.